Everybody back to Bill Goodman's birthday conference. And also my pleasure to introduce Yves Benoit, who will talk about harmonic quasis and isometric maps between rank 1 symmetric spaces.
Thank you. So I would like first to thank the organizer for inviting me here. I'm especially happy to be here for Bill's birthday, even though I'm not a former PhD student, even though I have not written joint paper with Bill. I'm very happy to be here. I can explain why. It's a kind of long story. It started like 25 years ago. I was doing joint work with François Labourie and Patrick Foulon, studying anodes of flows. And we wanted to prove that when you have an another flow, it has a stable and unstable foliation. And there was a conjecture which says that if these foliations are smooth, then the another flow should come from some algebraic construction. And we had a strategy with that, and it was first constructing a GX structure on the manifold, and then analyzing this GX structure. And it worked. So from that time, I really wanted to understand more. I had really this feeling that GX structures are useful. So I wanted to understand more. So I read papers on this topic, and mainly those were Bill's paper. And so I worked on GX structure for 10 years, about, even a little more. And not only me, but many students of mine. When I had a new student, very often I told him to read such or such paper of Bill. So that's the reason I'm happy to be here, and so happy birthday, Bill. And today I will not speak on this topic, GX structure, but on harmonic quasi-isometric maps, and it's a joint work with Dominique Hulin. So maybe I explain the problem. So in all this talk, I will have two X, Y, rank 1 symmetric spaces. Rank 1 Riemannian symmetric spaces. Of non-compact type. And this means that they are either the real hyperbolic space or the complex hyperbolic space or the quaternionic hyperbolic space or the Cayley two-plane. So it's one of these spaces. But just to be very concrete, and what I want to explain is new in the following case, where X is just the hyperbolic plane, and Y is the hyperbolic free space. So I can draw a picture. Here is Y, which is my hyperbolic free space, that I can see it as a ball. And inside it, I have quasi-isometrically and totally geodesic plane, which is X, which is embedded in Y. But I want to study slightly more general situation where this hyperbolic plane is not embedded in an isometric way, but more in a quasi-isometric way. So the picture is not the boundary is not a round circle, but more like a quasi-circle. So the picture is more like that. And even, a quasi-circle can be slightly more complicated. And so I have X, which is embedded in a quasi-isometric way. So I write the definition. F from X to Y is quasi-isometric. If you are able to control the distance between the image of 2 points, the distance between f of x and f of x prime, linearly by the distance between x and x prime above and also from below, c minus 1 distance from x to x prime up to an additive constant. So you kind of don't mind what happens at a finite distance. So there exists some constant positive, and this has to be true for every x prime in x. Okay, so it's a well-known definition, and many people have studied this kind of map, and you would like to know whether you see, when you have a quasi-isometric map, if you modify this map by replacing it by another one, that you have f, you replace it by another one f prime, such that f and f prime are at bounded distance of one another. So because of this constant, f prime will still be quasi-isometric. So you just think of these quasi-isometric maps up to this equivalence being at bounded distance. And so I want to know whether in equivalent class there is a better quasi-isometric map. And maybe we would like to have one which is of smallest energy, and so one which is harmonic. And this is my second definition. So definition, a infinity map H from X to Y is harmonic. If you have, I will give two definitions. The first is the partial differential equation. The tangent field is 0. The tangent field is just the trace of the Hessian of H. The Hessian of f of H is a bilinear map from the tangent space of X to the tangent space of Y. So when you take the trace, you have kind of a vector field on X with value in Y. And so the condition is that this tangent field is 0. But those are just, since we are here in negative curvature, it's equivalent to say that this function h minimizes locally the energy. So let me say it precisely. So for every k included in X compact, for every function, let's say h prime, C infinity function from X to Y, such that H coincide with H prime on the complementary of K, outside K. I assume that each time I have a function which is equal to h except on some compact set, so I just modify h on a compact set, so then the energy increases. Then the energy I just compute it on k because outside if not I will get infinite energy. So the integral over k of the square of the differential of h is bounded by the integral over k of the square of the differential of h prime. Okay, so this is the definition of harmonic, and what I want to explain today is that every quasi-isometric map. So that the answer to the question is yes, every quasi-isometric map f from x to y is within bounded distance of a unique harmonic map. H. Okay. This is what I want to explain. Okay, so before giving the proof of this theorem, I want to make some comments. The first one is that this was conjectured by the at least when x is equal to y. This was conjectured by Shen when x and y are equal to h2, and by Li and Wang for more general symmetric spaces. And so this is the first comment, but the second comment is that this talk is related to, it's a project we developed when we were during the MSRI program organized by Bill. And when we arrived there at Berkeley, a nice paper occurred, and by Markovich. So for x equal y equal h2, Shen conjecture was proven by Vlad Markovich. And at that time, we didn't know about this Li-Wang conjecture, but we knew this Shen conjecture, and so we really wanted to understand the Markovich paper. So we studied it, and also at that time, we were very much interested with quasi-circles. So we really had in mind these special cases like H2 inside H3, trying to see whether we can push this argument to do this case H2 to H3. And but in between, Markovich went on, so he did the case x equal y equal hn with Lem. And so during we were able to do this case, but in a way that we didn't use anything. So at the very end, it was for any rank 1 Riemann symmetric space. Okay. Now maybe I'm doing other comments. So when you assume x, sorry?
Is it, I mean, this is a stupid question, I think, but is it even clear that in a quasi-isometric class there's a Lipschitz map?
This will be the first step.
Okay, sorry.
This will be the first step. And so for x equal y equal the quaternion hyperbolic space or the Cayley one. In fact, the result is due to Pensu a long time ago, maybe in the 90s. Sorry, end of the 80s. Okay, 90 will be seen from here 25 years ago. And in the case of Pensu, it's due to Pensu, and in this case, H is an isometry. Maybe you have to rescale the metric, but so you get much stronger result than harmonic. You get that it is an isometry. And in fact, just after that, there was a conjecture by Margulis that for x equal y equal higher rank symmetric space, for h equal y equal higher rank symmetric space, one should find H also to be an isometry at bounded distance from Yorkaise isometry. And this conjecture was proven by Kleiner and Leib. So, sorry? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. And then there was a lot of work, maybe going to non-co-compact lattice, having analogous result with non-co-compact lattice, and works of Benson, Farb, and Eskin, work of Rich Schwartz. And so I will not explain everything. Just a last comment. Maybe if one is rank 1 and the other is not. So for x equal h2 and y is equal to higher rank. So it's not true. And here is an example. It's a very easy example. So you just embed x inside the products x cross r, and x cross r, you can, the product Riemann manifold, you can embed it inside your higher rank symmetric spaces. So, and you will construct the map the following way. You send x to the couple x, distance from x naught to x, and then here you take an isometry. So because of this isometry, you just have to focus on this embedding between x and x cross r. So the picture is like that. You have x which is here, and you have r which is here. And here you have your point x0. Okay? And I will draw the image of this map. It's just like that. this is the image of my map. And so this map cannot minimize the energy. I mean, you cannot find some map minimizing the energy which is at bounded distance because of the following reason. It's not a proof, but just a feeling you can get, is that if you really want to minimize the energy, like you want to modify it like in a ball of radius r here or on x0, what would you do? You just cut here. So if you modify on a compact set in such a way you want to minimize the energy, you get this map. So when the compact set becomes bigger and bigger, everything is going to infinity. And so it's almost an argument. You can make out of it an argument. And in fact, it's more than an example. It tells you what I will have to do in my proof. It's exactly what I will have to do in my proof. In my proof, I will try to construct a harmonic map on a ball of radius. I will take a harmonic map on a ball of radius r, which coincides with f on the sphere. And then I will just have to check that everything does not go away at infinity. So this will be the proof. Okay, and now I'm going to do this proof now.
I'm sorry for interrupting you, but
No, don't be sorry. Okay.
but this example of unequal rank.
Yes.
So the true question, I think, is supposed to have two equal rank symmetric spaces, and you have a map between them. Can you find the harmonic map?
Yeah, yeah.
This is exactly what you're putting in rank 1, right?
Yes, exactly. So that's a conjecture. I mean, you can call it a conjecture. I think it's an interesting question because there are examples due to David Fisher and Kevin White of quasi-isometric map between two rank 2 symmetric spaces which are not isometric. So maybe one can expect to have within bounded distance a harmonic one. But okay, thanks. So I'm going to the proof. So there are 4 steps. Regularization. So this is answering to your question that we will be able to find, one can assume that my map F is a Lipschitz. That F is a sinfinity. Its derivative is bounded by a uniform constant C, which that's the constant of C quasi-isometry. Maybe I change it if needed. But also the second derivative will be useful. Okay. So you can start. In the definition of quasi-isometry, I don't assume F to be continuous, even not measurable, but it's not very important. You quickly can replace F by a map which have maybe a countable image if you want, but then it's better to try to find something which satisfies this bound, and the proof is very easy. You just replace F. You do think at the same question if the target space were R, the real number. So what you would do is to kind of do some convolution. And this is what I will be doing. I will do some convolution, and here convolution is just replacing my function f by f sends this point x to another point. So I replace this point f by a small measure, probability measure around x. And I take this measure, I push it by f, and I take the center of mass of the image. So proof, replace f, f of x by the map x0 sends you to this map f tilde x0, which is equal to the center of mass of this measure f star mu x0. So what is mu x0? I have my point x0, and it's something like that. The picture is in x, and this is mu x0, which is some function, let's say maybe a function phi x0 dx, and the phi x0 just is just a function of x depending on the distance to x0, where phi x0 of x is some alpha distance from the x0 to x, alpha is infinity function with compact support on R, alpha positive, and you manage so that maybe mu x0 is a probability measure, and this does the job. And when you are doing this convolution process, you are able to bound the derivative and the second derivative by the derivative and the second derivative of alpha. So the regularity of f of the starting function does not occur. Okay, so this is the regularization step. Now I assume that f has this nice control on the derivative and second derivative. And the second step will be solving the Dirichlet problem. So I plan to write down in this step what I just told you at the very beginning on the general strategy of the proof. So I fix x0 in x, and I consider the ball of center x0, radius big R, and R will be a parameter in all this talk. R will be very large, and everything will depend on R. Sometimes I will not write this, that it depends on R, and I want to do that. So I use the following fact, which is due to Shen, which tells you that I can find a harmonic map at least on this ball. There exists a harmonic map H and X HR, from BR to OI, such that HR is equal to F on the boundary of the ball. Okay, so I'm doing exactly what I did here with in this picture. Okay, so the main proposition, and what I will focus on is just this proposition 2, is that HR remain at bounded distance from F independently on R. So there exists some constant M, strictly positive, for every positive R. This integer, this real number ρ, which is the sup for x in BR of the distance between HR of x to f of x, is bounded by M. So this is the aim of the talk, to prove that. And if I have that, I will be able to conclude. Why will I be able to conclude? Because I will have this, I will get a sequence HR going to infinity. And so this, I will R go to infinity. This function HR will not go to infinity, so they will remain at bounded distance. So I want them to converge. And the main point to conclude that I can make them converge is a quasi-compassity argument, which is like for convex function. You know, if you control the image of a convex function, you are able to control the derivative in the middle. So you can apply Ascoli, things like that. And this control is very nice here. It's due to Cheng, so I write it down just because I will use it later. So it's the following fact. Due to Cheng, so let's say for H is a map from X to Y which is harmonic. If you know that a ball, let's say that it sends a ball of radius 1 inside a ball of radius, let's say t, then you are able to control the derivative at the middle point. And there are explicit constants, and here you can compute them. It's like, it's linear in t. There is a constant time t, because you are in a curvature -1. Maybe you can improve that, but so then this is why, because of that, proposition 2 implies theorem. So now I focus on the proof of proposition 2. I have to bound this. This is what I want to do. I want to bound this, and I will do it in 2 steps. First, I will do it near the sphere. And it is the following lemma. Which is that I'm able to bound the distance from HR of x to f of x by the distance to the boundary of the sphere, which is maybe up to some multiplicative constant, which is kind of explicit, which is 4c squared here. So this constant is not very important. And this is the c is a quasi-isometric constant. And here you have r minus the distance from x0 to x. So this means that this harmonic map is equal to f on the sphere. They are equal. But when you move away from the sphere by a distance, say a, then the way they diverge, the way f and hr diverge is at most linear in A.
So does this use negative curvature or it is positive curvature?
I think it uses negative curvature. You will see I give the proof. So negative curvature, a lot of negative curvature. So the proof, I mean, we...
Your example.
Sorry?
Your example, you do have this linear estimate there.
Yes, but there are, we use negative curvature more than once. And yes, no, it does not use. I mean, it's not true. It will not be true in the flat case, but it will be true in higher rank symmetric spaces. The only thing we will use, I will tell you what to use. I give the proof. So then you, no, it works in higher rank. And so in fact, we found the idea of this lemma in, it's an argument due to Yost, Jürgen Yost. Okay, that I will explain now. And the idea is not to prove this bound, but to introduce a point in Y far away. And to introduce a function which is the distance between y0 and hr of x minus the distance between y0 and f of x and minus this second term. So minus this constant 4c squared r minus distance x0 x. Okay, so this is the sum of three terms, g1, g2, g3. And I want to prove that g of x is non-positive. Why is it good to have that? Because if I know that g of x is not positive, for every y0, what will I do? I have here hr of x, I have here f of x, and y0 I can choose it far away. But what I will do, I will choose it on this line. And then this difference will just be this distance. So I just want that, so let me prove that. And the first remark is that g of x is equal to 0 if x is on the boundary of the ball. This inequality, I want it for every x in the ball. So the idea now, since g is 0 on the boundary, it is 0 because this is equal to that on the boundary, f and hr are equal. And on the boundary, it's a sphere, so this distance is equal to r. So the only thing I have to check is why I will apply the maximum principle. So I just check that the Laplacian of G is positive, that the Laplacian of G is non-negative. So let me compute the Laplacian of G. Maybe I compute Laplacian of G is equal to the sum of the three Laplacians. So what is good? Maybe I use various colors. There is the Laplacian of G1 of x. There is the Laplacian of G2 of x. And there is the Laplacian of G3 of x. So let's focus on the blue one. So the blue one is it's a fact that when H is a harmonic map, that's a fact. And then this distance function is a subharmonic function. The function distance of a harmonic map to a fixed point, or distance between two harmonic maps, is subharmonic, meaning the Laplacian of phi is positive or 0. And so I'm happy. This is positive or 0. Now I have to go to the control of G2. That's here. I want to control this. I have just this function f. Okay, but I'm happy because of the first step. I know the derivative and the second derivative of f are uniformly bounded. So by step 1, the Laplacian of G2 of x is bounded below by maybe minus 4c squared. Okay? And so this is in the last step that I use that I am not in Rn. But, what do I do for controlling this Laplacian? So this is, I told you, at least minus 4c squared. And for the last step, I just consider this function, I just compute the Laplacian of the distance function to some fixed point, x0. Here it occurs with a coefficient 4c squared. And I would like to prove that it is greater or equal to 1. And in fact it is. This is not true in Rn, but this is true in negative curvature, in curvature minus 1. So here you have something which is at least 4c squared, and you are happy. All this is positive, and G is non-positive. And I have finished for my boundary estimate, and I will switch to the interior estimates. Okay, so this is the longest step, but there will just be elementary arguments. We will see again in the argument the fact that this function is subharmonic and also Chang control of the derivative. So what does one do? One argue by contradiction. And so you assume rho is very large. Rho is the distance between these two functions, HR and you fix x in the ball BR, where the maximum of the distance is achieved. Rho is equal to the distance between HR of x to f of x. And so x is far away from the sphere. So I will be able to draw in the ball a small ball with center x and a radius r, and I will fix. So I will let a point z move in a small sphere of center x of radius r. This r is small compared with this one, but r will be. You will see later why. Rho, cubes root of rho. It's not homogeneous, but I'm fixing the curvature to be -1, so nothing is homogeneous. And so this is my choice. And now the proof is just one picture. Okay, so I draw the picture, and this is the proof. So I have this sphere of center x and radius r, and I have this point z which will vary on this sphere. Okay, this is in the starting space x. And then I take the image by my two maps, f and hr. So now I get a picture in y. Here I have this point, I call it y, which is f of x. And the point hr of x is really far away, because this maximum is achieved exactly for this point x. So here in this part of the picture, you see this ball is inside a much bigger ball, which is this big ball of you see there is this big ball with center x0 and radius big R, but I kind of forget about it. Everything depends on this parameter big R, but I kind of forget about it. I just focus on this part of the picture, and I'm sending this point x to f of x, this point x to hr of x. And now I'm looking at what z is doing by f, the image by f, and the image by hr. So I'm drawing the picture like maybe here it's f of z, and here I will have hr of z. And now I draw the geodesic from, I look at everything from y. Here I was looking at everything from x, now I look at everything from y. So I look what happens here and here. Okay. So I get three angles. This is theta 1. This angle, the angle between f of z and hr of z when you look from y. There is this angle, theta 2, the angle between hr of z and hr of x when you look from y, and this angle, theta 0, between f of z and hr of x when you look from y. Okay? And the proof is that theta 0 is bounded by theta 1 plus theta 2. Okay, this I think you know. And then there will be three steps. First step is that often theta 1 is small. Second step is often theta 2 is small. And last step is often theta 0 is not small. Okay, so there will be three lemmas, and I think I have time to state them and to explain the proof of them, because they are simple. So let's focus on theta 1, so the blue one. Maybe I should have, I'm focusing on the blue one. So this is the following lemma. So often will be for z is varying. So this will be for many points z for the Riemann measure. Let sigma r be the Riemannian measure on the sphere of radius r, normalized to have mass 1. So it's a probability measure. And often will be of positive measure with respect to sigma r, something like that. And so the lemma is to find this set of positive measure. So let U be the set of points for which HR is almost equal. The distance. This distance is almost the same as this one. So it's a set of Z in the sphere such that the distance between Y and HR of Z is at least rho minus R over 2C. So it's some it's almost equal to rho up to something which is R. R is this radius, and you divide by 2C. C is this Lipschitz constant satisfied by F. F is C Lipschitz, you know. And so and then what you know about that, you will get two things. So this is a definition, and you will know two things. First thing is for every z in U, you have that theta 1 is small, and you can say explicitly what it means. It's like maybe something like there is some constant, e to the small c, this is the same constant, and maybe here e minus r over 4c, something like that, okay? So it's small when r is large. It's very small. And why is it so? So this is, and I will explain these 2 points. The second point is that u has big measure, meaning big meaning non-zero, like you can control from below the measure of u, which is 1 over 3 by 1 over 3 c squared. So how do you get that? So those are just 2 arguments. This is hyperbolic geometry. Why? Because you know that this length here is at most c over r. You can, sorry, r over c. I mean, you use the fact that f is a quasi-isometry. Maybe it's at most r over c minus c, or but you have a bound from below for this length, which is at most r over c. And here I'm assuming that this length is, this length is at least r over c. You have a lower bound for this length. And you have a lower bound for this length because this is the assumption here. Rho minus this. But this distance is smaller than rho because rho is the maximum possible. So you get a triangle for which you know that the third length is not the sum of the other two. So this tells you that this angle is exponentially small. So this is why you get this inequality. And the question is, why does this happen so often? Why do you have positive measure? But just because here I have a harmonic function. And this harmonic function on this sphere, its average is the value in the middle. And in the middle, the value is rho. And here, since in average, it is larger than rho, but it cannot be much larger than rho because rho was the maximum. So if it is sometimes smaller, it's not that often. So this is why you get this lower bound. So this is the first lemma, which is the upper bound for theta 1. And I will go slightly more quickly for lemma 2 and lemma 3. Lemma 2 is really like lemma 1. Maybe I can take 2 or 3 minutes? Yeah, okay, thank you. Let me, the lemma 2 which control theta 2. Maybe I write in black because you will not see in green. So it's a green lemma, and you introduce V, which is a set of Z on the sphere. This part of the proof is very much inspired by Markovitch argument. Okay, I have to say. And such that the distance between so that you have this lower bound, but not only for HR of Z, but for all the geodesic. Not the geodesic, for all the image, sorry, not the geodesic. For all the image, I don't know why I draw this like that way. For all the image of this segment, the image of this geodesic, by the harmonic map. So the set of Z such that each time I have a point, I call it ZT, on the geodesic between X and Z, so that's the point which is there. The distance between Y and HR of ZT is at least rho over 2. So I'm not going too near Y. I just always stay at distance at least rho over 2. This is my set V. And again, I have 2 things. First, if I take Z in V, I'm sure that theta 1, theta 2 will be bonded, will be small, and small means here like rho, maybe rho square over SH rho over 2, something like that. But this goes to 0 when rho goes to infinity. And again, I am able to control the measure of V by something which is very near 1, like 1 minus 1000, maybe. And there is here, if you do the computation, R square over rho. And that's here that I need R to be the cube root of R, of rho. Okay, so what is the proof of these 2 points? So the first point, how do you control this, this angle? Why is this angle small? The reason why this angle is small is the following. By Chang, I know this length. By Chang, I control the derivative of my harmonic map. So I control the length of this curve. But if this curve does not go too near y, then the angle has to be bounded by something like this over S, the hyperbolic sign of rho over 2. And then this also comes from a subharmonicity of my function distance. And for the last lemma, let me write the last lemma. And then I have finished. So lemma 3, I introduce this set W, which is U intersection V. And what I know is that maybe sigma of W is larger than some maybe 1 over 6 square, because I just remove from that just a little bit. So this is my set W, and the only thing I will use on W is this lower bound on the measure. I will just, and what I'm saying is that you see I have a set W which has a big measure. And what I want to see that theta 0 cannot stay small. What does it mean? This means that F cannot just stay in this direction of Y. But you see what is F of Z? I'm just taking a sphere of radius small r, okay, and I'm taking its image by my quasi-isometry. Small r is very big. So the map you get is like the boundary map of your quasi-isometry. So what you get is a kind of quasi-symmetric map for which you really control the constant. And it cannot send a set of measure bounded below to something which is very much concentrated in some place. So you get your contradiction. So I just write it, but I think I said everything already. The lemma tells you that if, maybe something like that for every epsilon positive, no, so, sorry. I want to say that for every epsilon positive, I'm able to find there exists delta positive such that for each time, for every W, not only this one, but for any W such that sigma, the measure of W is larger than epsilon, and this is also for every small r. If I'm looking at the image of W by this direction, the diameter of the set of Vf of Z for Z in W is greater or equal to delta. And what is this? This is an element of the unit tangent bundle at Y, and it tells you exactly, you write f of Z, you write it as the exponential seen from Y of something, a real number, rho f of Z, and a direction, Vf of Z. And so this is positive. And so this direction Vf is here. So the set of direction you see, which are in the image of W, cannot have a small diameter. This is what this third lemma tells you. And it's just a question you see about, there is no more harmonic map here. It's just a quasi-isometric map. So it's just a pure question about quasi-isometric map. So I think I have given the full proof, and I'm sorry I was slightly too long.
Any quick questions, Ray?
Well, where do you use that it's you have a symmetric space?
Thank you. We expect to extend it to Pinch-Hadamard manifold, but we have a little trouble with you see, we express a subharmonicity by saying that the average on the sphere is larger than the value in the middle. Here, it's the measure you have to take into account is a measure which does not depend on the radius. But in varying curvature, you have to introduce the green measure, which depends on the radius. So here we have some trouble. So we have not fixed it yet. And okay. But that's the only place where you use it.
Okay, well, thank Yves again for a very beautiful talk.
Thank you.
And let's start up 5